Messi and Argentina are out of the 2030 World Cup. FIFA has punished the salvagist with unprecedented, historic severity. Now you will understand the sheer weight of every single document, along with every piece of evidence and violation the FIFA Disciplinary Committee laid out on the table to hand down the most ruthless decision in the entire history of soccer. Do not go anywhere. What you are about to hear right now has never been told anywhere else with this level of detail. I can promise you three key things today. First, the actual names of the referees bribed by Argentina in 2026, complete with exact dates and specific matches. Second, the official blacklist of violations detailed inside the confidential report, including physical assaults by Argentine players against Spain during the final. And third, the absolute truth about that controversial Malvinas banner. What exactly did Lionel Messi do on the pitch? How did FIFA respond? And why was that specific provocation the final straw, forcing the president to declare that Argentina will not set foot in the 2030 World Cup? Three explosive revelations, three massive bombshells that we will fully unpack in this video. If you walk away before the halfway mark, you will miss the most unbelievable twist in this entire saga. Consider yourselves warned. Let us start from the very beginning with a question that half the planet is still asking, while the other half desperately tried to cover it up. What on earth did Argentina do at the 2026 World Cup? Because what FIFA uncovered is not just some minor incident. We are not talking about a simple red card or a tense player throwing a tantrum in the round of 16. Instead, FIFA exposed an entire system, a highly organized plan built entirely on deception, intense pressure, and unsportsmanlike behavior that the disciplinary committee claims has absolutely no precedent in the long history of the tournament. Let me tell you something as a fan who has followed soccer stories for decades. When FIFA, an organization not exactly known for being overly strict, decides to ban a team from the next World Cup, it means what they found is absolutely massive. Something so incredibly serious and impossible to ignore that it left them with no other choice. We are not talking about a €200,000 fine to sweep this under the rug. This is about banishing a world champion squad from the single most prestigious tournament on the face of the earth. Just think about that. Messi's Argentina, the very team that hoisted the trophy in Qatar in 2022 and reached the final in North America in 2026, is completely out. Eliminated, with no ticket for 2030. And Messi, their captain, the icon who was supposed to lead by example, has been hit with a massive personal suspension. How on earth did things get to this point? What exactly does a national team have to do for FIFA to slam the doors of the World Cup right in their face? Get ready, because the full list of charges is incredibly long and frankly pretty terrifying. Let us break it down step by step. The very first document sitting on the disciplinary committee's table speaks clearly about referee corruption. Yes, you heard that right. Plain and simple corruption. We are not talking about standard media pressure or complaints. This is pure corruption. FIFA claims to hold undeniable proof that individuals close to the Argentine national team directly contacted the referees selected to work the Albiceleste matches in 2026, all to secure favorable calls against their opponents. And here is the specific detail that will leave you absolutely frozen. This was not just a single game or some isolated incident. It happened across multiple knockout rounds involving several different referees under a highly structured, systematic plan. But how many officials are actually involved here? Who are they? In which matches was this favoritism obvious? I will tell you in just a moment. I am going to give you the names and point out the matches in the next section, when we thoroughly analyze the documents and physical evidence inside the FIFA report. Although I can already tell you something that anyone watching those matches with even a little bit of attention noticed immediately on live television. They consistently disallowed goals scored by Argentina's opponents for reasons that made absolutely no sense whatsoever. Perfectly legitimate goals were wiped off the board with excuses so completely absurd that even the television commentators were left utterly speechless. Today, months later, we finally have official confirmation of what so many of us already strongly suspected. Those bad calls were not just simple mistakes. They were part of the plan. Think about it, in a tournament played in America, right before the eyes of the entire world, with the video assistant referee technology running at full capacity, Somebody within the Argentine inner circle actually believed they could buy off referees without getting caught. The absolute hubris of feeling completely above every single rule, the pure arrogance of thinking that just because you are Argentina, you have Messi, and you won a previous cup, you can just manipulate the matches. That is exactly what FIFA absolutely refused to tolerate. And honestly, thank goodness for that. If they had just turned a blind eye with a slap on the wrist and a token fine, the message sent to every other national team would have been absolutely disastrous. It would tell everyone that the most powerful teams can cheat without any real consequences, which is simply unacceptable. But keep in mind, the referee help is only the beginning, and it might not even be the absolute worst part. The official case file analyzes in great detail methodical obstructionism that the Argentines deployed throughout the entire tournament. And we are not just talking about some tactical foul in the 85th minute to stop a counterattack. This is a systematic pattern of behavior that FIFA literally defines as contrary to fair play. We saw this exact same dirty behavior play out match after match, from the group stage all the way to the final. Blatant time wasting right from the opening whistle, ridiculous diving, and constant verbal trash talk aimed at getting under the opponent's skin. Brutal, bone-crunching tackles designed to injure players rather than win the ball. All of it happened with the quiet approval of a coaching staff that, according to the report, did not lift a finger to stop it. In fact, FIFA suggests this obstruction was a pre-planned strategy, not just nervous players acting on impulse. And I have to ask, and I am asking you too, is this really what we want to see at a World Cup? Does this garbage actually represent the beautiful game? An entire team stepping onto the pitch not to outplay their opponent, but to cheat, buy off referees, provoke, fake injuries, waste time, and kick people, and they call this being champions. This is the legacy of Messi, because after this World Cup, his reputation is permanently and irreparably stained, and anyone who chooses not to see that is just living in denial. But let us shift now to something that is guaranteed to make your blood absolutely boil, especially if you love clean football, beautiful play, and a sport that is actually played with a ball rather than through sheer violence and physical assault. Now let us talk about the semifinal, Argentina versus England, a match highly anticipated as one of the single biggest clashes of the entire tournament. A collision heavy with history, bitter rivalry, and pure tension. A match that ultimately ended in a 2-1 victory for Argentina. Up to that point, it was just a standard sporting result. Nobody is questioning those two Argentine goals or the final scoreline, but the post-match fallout triggered one of the most savage storms ever recorded in the entire history of the World Cup. Right after the final whistle blew, with their ticket to the grand finale locked in, several players from the Argentine squad unrolled a massive banner right there on the grass, directly in front of the global television cameras. In front of millions of live viewers, the banner boldly read, "The Falklands are Argentine. Look, anyone can believe whatever they want regarding the Falkland Islands issue. Everyone has a right to their opinion, but there is a time and a place for everything. And a football pitch at a FIFA World Cup governed by incredibly strict regulations against political statements is absolutely not that place. FIFA explicitly bans every single form of political messaging or display inside the field of play. It is clearly written in the rulebook, in the disciplinary code, and in the agreement that every single federation signs before competing. Argentina knew this perfectly well, and so did Messi, yet they chose to completely ignore it and do it anyway. And that is exactly where Messi himself comes into the picture, because according to the official FIFA report, he did not just stand by. It was Messi himself holding up that banner. The captain, the leader, the most famous athlete on the planet, was the one carrying that political banner, showing it to the world during a World Cup match. And FIFA is already warning that this will bring serious consequences. Punishments that could actually result in an individual suspension for Leo Messi. Having a champion of his massive stature and historic legacy stoop to this level is honestly one of the greatest disappointments I have ever experienced as a soccer fan. We are not talking about some 20-year-old kid getting swept away in the heat of the moment. This is a seasoned professional who has played in 6 World Cups, who has won absolutely everything, who knows the regulations completely by heart, and still chose to deliberately ignore them. The backlash from the British press was instant. Every single newspaper, from the Times to the Daily Mail, including The Telegraph and The Guardian, condemned their stunt and demanded that FIFA hand down a severe punishment. And let me make this perfectly clear. This has nothing to do with supporting or opposing Argentina's territorial claims. It is about respecting the tournament and following the guidelines that every single team agreed to obey. But Argentina once again decided that the basic rules simply do not apply to them. Now, let us turn to the Spanish media, because their national team has plenty to say about this scandal. Their statements are probably the absolute harshest, most outraged, and entirely justified claims in the entire file, but that brings us to the grand finale. What Argentina did to Spain in that deciding match, I am going to reveal to you right now. Brace yourselves, because if you thought the referee scandal was bad and the banner was disrespectful, what happened in the final is 10, 100, 1,000 times worse. The final of the 2026 World Cup, Spain versus Argentina, the ultimate showdown that would decide who takes home the coveted World Cup trophy. Let us start with the actual play on the pitch, because what occurred out there makes the entire situation even more humiliating for Argentina. Spain completely outclassed them on the grass. They put on a display from another planet, lightning-fast passing, suffocating pressure, and relentless attacks. Absolute domination. Argentina practically did not exist for the entire match. No possession, no tactical ideas, and zero passion. Spain trapped them in one giant training rondo for 90 minutes straight, a masterclass in total football that left absolutely no room for doubt. Without a single shred of doubt, Spain proved they were the best team on the entire planet, and the final scoreline made it official. Spain 1, Argentina 0. La Roja are the world champions. One single goal was all it took against an opponent completely incapable of creating any real danger in attack. And normally, sportsmanship dictates that when you lose a final, you congratulate your opponent. You shake their hands, swallow your bitter disappointment, and walk away with your head held high for making it that far. That is exactly what any team with a shred of dignity would do. But Argentina did not do that. Argentina did the exact opposite. According to the FIFA president, their behavior was the most serious offense committed during the entire 2026 World Cup. Several Argentine players launched a physical attack on Spain. This was no simple shoving match or heated argument. Actual assaults, punches, kicks after the whistle, pure violence aimed at players who had just won a World Cup final cleanly, fairly, and brilliantly. Just try to picture that scene. Spain had just reached the pinnacle of the sport. Their players were celebrating the absolute greatest moment of their careers, every footballer's dream. And suddenly the Argentine players lunge at them, throwing blows in front of the entire world. This actually happened. If you do not know the details, it is because the media sugarcoated the story. Argentina tried to spin it as competitive tension, but no, it was pure, cowardly violence. They simply could not accept that they were outclassed, refusing to admit that Spain totally ran all over them. Marca splashed it on their cover, as put it on their front page. El Chiringuito spent hours broadcasting the footage. The Cope network hit record ratings that week, covering the post-match fallout, and the conclusion was unanimous. It was a deeply shameful, cowardly act that stained the sport. And here is the big revelation I promised you at the very start, the one that changes everything, and why I asked you to stay tuned. Up until now, I have only given you the raw facts. The referee corruption, the dirty play, the Falklands banner, and those final assaults. But I still have not told you what FIFA decided to do. Nor have I revealed exactly what the disciplinary committee report says. We still need to cover the sanction details, the names, the evidence, and the figures. We are getting into that right now. If you made it this far, listen closely. Here comes the best part. The FIFA Disciplinary Committee launched a formal investigation 3 weeks after the 2026 World Cup ended. An investigation that dragged on for months of analyzing footage and conducting interviews, verifying communications, and gathering rock-solid evidence. The result is a report of over 300 pages detailing every single infraction committed by the Argentines during the tournament. 300 pages. Think about that. This is not just a simple 2-page warning. It is 300 pages packed with hard evidence, starting right with the referee corruption scheme. FIFA detected illegal contact between individuals connected to the Argentine delegation and at least 3 referees officiating their games. 3 different officials across 3 separate matches operating under a clearly coordinated plan. These contacts took place before the matches even started, not after. Their only goal, according to the evidence, was to tilt on-field decisions in Argentina's favor. The file outlines highly specific plays that directly benefited the Argentine national team, including legitimate goals disallowed for opponents, blatant penalties not called against them, and obvious red cards completely ignored by the ref. Decisions that, when viewed on their own, might look like simple human errors, but once matched with proof of those secret pre-game meetings, they reveal a scheme that FIFA flatly labels as corruption. And do you know what frustrates me the most? The fact that we all watched it happen live. There were disallowed goals that commentators questioned on the spot, moments when the VAR remained completely silent when it should have intervened. Even then, many of us suspected something was off. They called us conspiracy theorists. They told us we were seeing things, that Argentina was just far superior, and that the referee had made honest mistakes. Well, as it turns out, those mistakes weren't honest at all. There was money involved, and FIFA has proven it. Now, let us move to the second part of the report, the list of unsportsmanlike conduct. Because FIFA did not stop at investigating the corruption of the match officials, they also tracked the on-field behavior of the Argentines game by game, and what they uncovered is deeply unsettling. The report documents 17 separate episodes of dirty play spread across 6 different matches. We are talking about 17 blatant dives to trick the ref and force cards or fouls, plus unbearable time wasting far beyond what is acceptable. Their players routinely collapsed to the grass, faking injuries whenever Argentina held a lead. Vicious verbal provocations picked up by the pitchside microphones, just non-stop insults. Threats, psychological tricks to break the opponent, and utterly terrifying tackles. Brutal fouls that the official report explicitly calls potentially dangerous, which somehow went completely unpunished without the obvious red cards they deserved. And it was all because of Argentina's massive, undeniable influence over the referees. But out of all these ugly episodes, FIFA singles out one specific moment. The president himself publicly called it the most severe violation by any national team in this entire World Cup. The physical assault on the Spanish squad by Argentine players right after the final whistle. The official document details how, the very second the match ended, just as Spain began celebrating their hard-fought victory on the pitch, at least 5 Argentine players physically attacked the Spanish team. 5 of them. This was not just one guy losing his cool. We are talking about 5 professional athletes swarming and striking the world champions all at once. The case file contains screenshots, witness accounts, and medical reports from the Spanish squad. One defender took a direct, violent punch to the back of his neck. They shoved a midfielder with brutal force right into the steel advertising boards. Another got kicked hard from behind, way off the ball, far from any active play. It unfolded right before television cameras, thousands of live fans and families in the stands. Pure, unadulterated cowardice. Then Argentina had the nerve to shrug it off, calling it a normal reaction to high-stakes pressure. No, this is not pressure. This is straight-up violence. On any public street, this would be a serious crime, and I will not sugarcoat it. Spain erupted in absolute unanimous fury. The newspaper Marca ran the headline Argentine shame, while AS labeled it the single dirtiest moment in World Cup history. El Chiringuito started their broadcast with endless slow-motion replays, and the heated pundits, actually agreeing for once, demanded the harshest possible punishment. Over on Cop Radio, they interviewed the families of the assaulted players. Their testimony is bone-chilling. We are talking about mothers who watched from the stands as their sons were spay-beaten. Wives who ran down to the locker room only to find their husbands with fresh bruises all over their faces. That is what Argentina unleashed. Anyone who thinks the FIFA sanction is too harsh needs to think of those families. And then, there is the banner, the incident with Lionel Messi and the Malvinas. Because this incident, which might seem minor, next to the physical assaults and systemic corruption, completed the picture, and forced FIFA to hand down the ultimate punishment. See, FIFA has an incredibly clear rule. Any political messages on the pitch are strictly forbidden, as clearly outlined in Article 4 of the Disciplinary Code. Every single federation signs this agreement. The players know the rule. As captain, Lionel Messi had an ethical duty to enforce it, but instead he actually led the violation himself. He grabbed the banner firmly, hoisted it high for the cameras, and proudly displayed it to the entire world. The Malvinas are Argentine. a direct political statement during the World Cup. This is what FIFA could not tolerate, and it had nothing to do with the specific slogan itself. To be clear, FIFA is not ruling on whether the Malvinas belong to Argentina or Great Britain. That is not their job. The organization is punishing the act itself, using a massive global stage as a megaphone for political propaganda, deliberately breaking a strict rule you personally agreed to in writing. Operating under the belief that just because your name is Messi, you can do whatever you want. The British media immediately applauded FIFA's decisive move. The Times published a major editorial calling the heavy sanction both fair and necessary. The Telegraph described the ruling as a stark warning. The rules must apply to absolutely everyone. The Spanish press quickly took a stand too, with Marca and AS agreeing that FIFA ruled with an iron fist but with absolute justice. The president of FIFA was completely uncompromising in his official statement. He said, let me repeat his exact words. Every other team in the 2026 World Cup followed the rules, all 31 of them. The sole exception was Argentina. And because of that, and only that, Argentina is banned from the 2030 World Cup. This is not some random whim by FIFA or a personal vendetta. It is the direct consequence of Argentina's own actions. Honestly, I completely agree with this decision, and I think the vast majority of real soccer fans in Spain, in England, in the United States, and throughout the rest of Europe feel exactly the same way. Argentina's behavior is a direct insult to the sport itself, to fair play, and to every single team that competed honestly, showed respect to their opponents, and accepted defeat with real dignity. They thought they were above everyone. They thought they were untouchable. They were dead wrong. Now let me explain exactly what this penalty looks like in practice, because the fallout is absolutely devastating. Argentina will not play in the 2030 World Cup. No appeals will change that. Even though legal experts note that the Argentine Federation can file a formal challenge, yes, but the sports experts agree, the evidence is so overwhelming that the Court of Arbitration for Sport is highly unlikely to overturn this decision. We are talking about one of the absolute giants of global soccer, with 2 stars on their crest and Lionel Messi as their ultimate global symbol, who will watch the next World Cup on television just like any ordinary fan, unable to fight or defend anything at all. And for many Argentine players who would have been in their prime in 2030, this blow is completely final. They are stripped of a World Cup, but complaining is useless since they brought this on themselves. And let us discuss Messi. His ban is entirely personal, separate from the national squad. At 39, looking at a 2030 tournament, he might not have even participated in anyway. This FIFA punishment bans him from playing in official matches for a period that rumors suggest could stretch up to 2 full years. No Club World Cup, no international tournaments under the FIFA umbrella, and he is even banned from holding any kind of official, representative roles. Messi cannot serve as an ambassador, a spokesperson, or the public face of any FIFA event during this entire suspension. For a legendary athlete who dreamed of retiring as the greatest of all time, boasting an absolutely spotless reputation, this is a permanent stain on his career, a mark he brought upon himself. No one forced him to raise that banner, and nobody pushed him to lead a political protest right on the pitch. He chose this, and now he pays the price. For me, it is indisputable. Purely on the field, Messi is one of the greatest to ever step onto a pitch. There is no doubt about that, but talent does not exempt you from the rules, nor does it give you a free pass to do whatever you want. And if your entire soccer legacy ends with a heavy FIFA suspension for unsportsmanlike conduct, and for using a World Cup as a political platform, that very legacy becomes utterly ruined and deeply tarnished. A real shame, because it could have been perfect, but it was not. Let us look at the reactions now, because the impact has been a massive earthquake. In Argentina, as you can imagine, the response has been absolute and bitter rage. The Argentine Federation speaks of raw persecution, deep injustice, and blatant double standards. Team executives are accusing FIFA of plotting against them, and some local outlets are even pointing to purely commercial motives. They claim FIFA desperately wanted to exclude Argentina from the 2030 World Cup for pure marketing reasons. But I have to ask, would they seriously ban Argentina for business reasons when the country generates some of the biggest television ratings on the planet? If anything, FIFA benefits immensely from having Argentina participate in the tournament. Financially, their presence drives millions of euros in broadcast rights, corporate sponsorships, and ticket sales. When FIFA decided to punish them, it was not out of convenience, but because the Argentine infraction was so massive, it left them absolutely no choice. Meanwhile, the European and North American press have applauded this tough decision completely unanimously. Spanish newspapers, for us obvious reasons, were by far the harshest. Marca reported that this ruling restores credibility to FIFA, which, let us be completely honest, is not something you hear very often. Over at AS, they are calling it sporting justice, while both Cope and El Chiringuito have reached the exact same conclusion. FIFA did the right thing. The English press, who were directly affected by that semi-final banner incident, cheered the ruling with loud headlines, stating that FIFA has finally shown its teeth, and wrote editorials praising the firm stance of the governing body. Across the United States, the host nation where everything went down, major newspapers are emphasizing that this heavy ban sends an incredibly clear message. In soccer, just like any other sport, the rules are sacred, and whoever breaks them pays the price. The FIFA president was incredibly blunt in his official statement, explaining that the disciplinary committee analyzed every single incident on an individual basis, adding that the evidence was completely overwhelming, and the decision was made unanimously. Completely unanimous. Not one member voted against keeping Argentina out of the 2030 World Cup. This shows just how clear-cut the situation really was, and then he added a key detail that completely defines this entire mess. He stated that all other teams in the 2026 World Cup followed the rules, absolutely everyone. The only exception was Argentina. And that is the final answer to the original question. Why did FIFA hit Argentina with such a brutal punishment? Simple, they were the only ones who acted this way. No precedents exist and no other countries are involved. Argentina decided the rules did not apply to them, and now they find themselves completely alone, excluded from the next World Cup tournament. Let me leave you with one final thought that feels absolutely essential at this point. At the end of the day, soccer is far more than a sport. It is passion, culture, and a force that unites millions across every single corner of the globe. And the World Cup represents the absolute peak of that unity, the exact moment when the entire planet stops just to watch a ball roll. But for that moment to remain truly special and retain its real value, there must be absolute justice. Rules have to be respected. The best teams need to win by playing better, not by buying off referees. It requires respecting your opponent, celebrating without violence, and accepting defeat with your head held high. Argentina wiped all of this away in a single stroke, stomping all over the unwritten rules that make soccer beautiful, and now they pay the heavy consequences. It is a steep price, absolutely massive. Getting kicked out of a World Cup, there is literally nothing worse that can happen to a national team. But facts are facts. The hard evidence is laid out on the table, and for once, FIFA actually had the guts to act on it. Now the ball is in your court. Let me ask you this completely straight up. Do you honestly believe FIFA was way too harsh on Argentina, or did they get off easy? Should they have banned Argentina from the 2034 World Cup, too, just to send a clear message? And what about Messi? Does his personal suspension actually feel fair to you? Or do you think that since he is the captain, he deserved a much more severe punishment? Is a 2-year ban from all FIFA competitions really enough for the man who waved a political banner right on the pitch? Let me know exactly what you think in the comments. I want to hear from every single one of you. Those standing with FIFA and those screaming that this is a total injustice. Every single voice counts, because this debate is massive. It matters deeply for the sport. It matters for the future of the World Cup, and we as fans have to make our voices heard. Hit that like button if you think FIFA made the right call. That is the absolute simplest way to support our work and help us reach more fans who need to see this. Subscribe right now. Tomorrow, I reveal the other side of this bombshell. 7 players are currently in FIFA's crosshairs for violent conduct during the final. We will have names, footage, and absolutely everything. Hit the notification bell because that video is going to be wild. And before we go, just remember one thing, this story is far from over. Argentina is going to fight this. Their federation already announced they are taking this entire case straight to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. The coming months are going to be a media circus of absolutely epic proportions, and I will be right here to cover every single chapter of this saga. Because let me tell you right now, this is easily the single biggest crisis in Argentine soccer history, and quite possibly one of the absolute worst moments in World Cup history. Yes,